What's up, everybody? This is Jeff Sintel. I'm that Dog Nation recruiting guy. Hey, big day, big week. Always a big week here on Before the Hedges on Wednesday night. Used to call it Wednesday Night Live. Now it's Before the Hedges, sponsored by Kroger. We're talking all things Georgia football recruiting. Now, we got a busy show, good show coming up. I think the thing we got to talk about as you read your headlines as we tease on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. As we tease on YouTube. Hello, YouTube as well. But we're talking about Georgia's 16 early enrollees that came to campus this week. I think today was the first day of class. You saw a lot of cool images on social media, including a recent trailer dropped by the Football UGA Twitter account of everybody on that big move-in day. So we're going to talk about that. I think that's the biggest thing to talk about right now. And is you might see over the course of our show, we're going to debut kind of a new feature. And it may end up over here. It may end up over here. But we're going to kind of try to give you guys like an organic, sort of a real-time feature about what we're going to talk about. Like for tonight, we're going to talk about the early enrollees, 16 of them, and why I deem that to be so important. We're also going to talk about the 2021 target, Terryon Arnold. We're going to talk a little bit of news there on Terryon Arnold to talk about here tonight as well. The 2022 targets, that's the second time we've ripped out the guys that I feel are the most important recruits for Georgia on the board right now, and certainly that's subject to a lot of change. But, hey, it's early. I'm trying to give you guys a really good idea about the guys that I think are the really big fish in the deep water for Georgia in 2022. We're also going to talk about Gunnar Stockton. You're going to see those 2022 top targets, like I said. We're going to go through the early enrollees, the guys that are on campus, the guys that are still going to come. And then also at the end of our show, we'll have our usual what we like to call our online chatter, where I pick out a bunch of tweets. I know I've been a little bit slack on not giving you guys a whole lot of online chatter. And then absolutely, at any point in the show, we can have random interactions and zigs and zags of a lot of questions and answers. So that's kind of the teeing up of the show. I've got my brand name golf ball right here. I'm going to try not to be like my buddy Brandon Adams, and I hear him in the back of my mind right now saying, "No free plugs, no free plugs. Don't give anything away for free." But we're going to tee up our brand name golf ball tonight. We're going to try and hit that thing straight down the fairway. But that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. If there's something else you'd like to learn about, you'd like to know about from Team Dog Nation here on Wednesday night, well, sit back, buckle up. We're going to spend about maybe 45 minutes to an hour talking about all things Georgia football and Georgia football recruiting. Big news today. I guess the biggest news of the day, also may want to make sure and mention that on the team side, that's Zamir White coming back. To me, I kind of always thought Zamir was going to make a move to come back to Georgia. I just think I just don't think the draft grade was going to be exactly what he wanted. I know he loves Georgia. I know he loves what the program has done for him. The progress he's made towards his degree, the rehab of both of his knees. And we saw glimmers of Zamir this year. I know folks would like to wonder about what Zamir White isn't right now. And my quick take on that is, there's a lot of times Zamir was not getting, free releases, he was having to dodge a lot of guys up at the line. He read a lot of times against some heavy boxes in between the tackles, and that's always very hard to do in the SEC. I think he ends up with around 800 yards this year, 10 or 11 touchdowns, and that's against an all-SEC schedule. So I think the best of Zamir White, I'm sure Dog Nation would certainly cross their fingers on that one and say the best of Zamir White is still to come. That's a quick take on all things Zeus White. But I think the main entree of our show tonight is I want to take you guys through why I deem the 16 early enrollees are so important. First and foremost, here's the reporter factual bullet point stuff you guys need to know. I think the big thing for me is you see 16 early enrollees. So I went through all of the chatter. I went through all the records. I got some records back from the University of Georgia, and we've been able to determine that is very likely. We could almost 98.7% sure that this is the largest. I don't even know why I make it 98.7%. This is the largest early enrollee mid-year recruiting class in program history. I think one of the reasons why I deem this to be so important is, well, first of all, you've got a lot of pieces for Georgia that needed to enroll early. I'm going to look at a couple names really fast. I think it is of no coincidence to me is I think we've got those slates up that Michael can share. Michael Carvel, our ace producer, can share. We want to look first off at the guys that have enrolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 16 early enrollees, but I think the first thing that jumps out at me is the top 7 highest rated commitments in the class, signees in the class, are all going to enroll early. And you look at some areas which will certainly need it. You've got, David Daniel and Nyland Green as top 100 players for the back end of the secondary. Certainly going to be important with Georgia losing so many guys. 6 out of their top 7 players from the back end of the secondary. That's going to be vital to get those guys in. Most people do not know how hard it is. I think the hardest positions to play at Georgia would be the quarterback position and then the secondary. There's so many things these young men have to deal with installs and the amount of installations they'll do. I mean, sometimes in a given week, they'd go over like maybe 50 different installations. And that's just the concepts and the coverages they're going to line up in, much less the checks and the reads that they'll have to make once they see what happens with the offense is trying to do with some motion or eye candy or things like that. That's vital. You've got your probably one of the 2 guys. I think it's either Brock Vandegrift or Carson Beck, the quarterbacks of the future. Vandegrift can rehab that knee as well. Amarius Mims, that's the name I think we need to start with, because Amarius Mims is a guy that I think could certainly play right away at Georgia now that he's enrolling early. That's one thing that Tate Ratledge, Chad Lindbergh, and Cedric Von Granger, and also Broderick Jones didn't get a year ago. Those guys showed up around in June. I think that stunted their learning curve. And one other thing about Georgia and spring practice I want to bring to mind, and this was a good point I had chatting with Terrence Edwards earlier today. We were working on some projects that you guys will get to see soon, but Terrence had a very good point. Terrence said that, hey, why was Georgia a couple clicks off with their offense when they had some optimum personnel at some point? And everybody will go, well, of course, Jamie Newman left, and then Georgia lost their kind of trigger man at quarterback. But I think the reason why perhaps Florida and also Alabama look so crisp offensively this year, think about it for a second. They did not have to bring in a new quarterback. They had quarterback continuity. They had offensive coordinator continuity. So while they're going through spring practices and drills, they're not installing a new offense via Zooms. They're not doing this digitally. So I think Terrence thought so, and I agreed with him, as I think that was a factor, much less moving in Jamie Newman, moving out Jamie Newman, moving in Dwan Mathis, moving in Stetson Bennett IV. I think that was a major reason why maybe Georgia had some early hiccups, or they just weren't crisp. They weren't fluid in what they were trying to do. You keep looking at these names, as you'll see going down this list. And here's another thing that's a big factor for me. It is no secret if you look at that. You go Mims, you go Vandegrift, you go Sorey, you go Munden. Those are the 4 or 5 stars that Georgia signed in this class. It's about average for Georgia now to enroll 4 or 5 stars in any given cycle. It's the number 3 class in the country, but you keep going down. You get Morris, you get Green, you get Daniel. Those are the 7 highest rated signees that Georgia signed. Very important. And then you see a couple other skill guys in Brock Bowers, Lavassier Carroll. And very important here too, as you see looking down the line, you see Jonathan Jefferson out of Douglas County. I think it's going to be very interesting for me to see which one of those 2 guys, Tyrion and Ingram Dawkins or Jonathan Jefferson, who has better ball get off. What I mean is a guy that gets off the ball quicker. Both those guys are really twitchy, really hyper fast on that. And then you see the 2 receivers that also come into this class along with Marlon Dean. Georgia signed right now. Georgia has 3 defensive linemen that they brought in this class, and all those guys are enrolling into Sinclair Sweatshop, Sinclair's program, the House of Pain, really early. I think that is beneficial for Georgia and what they're trying to do. You see Javon Bullard, another defensive back that also made his way into the fold this week. That video's got some funny things. You see a player Kirby Smart's making a joke about that's the only time somebody's going to carry bags for you. You see a couple other receivers in that as well. You see Brock Vandegrift with the gator, the noose thing on there. You see all those cool things about the guys moving in. Javon Bullard, Marlon Dean, Tyrion and Dawkins. That's a good overview for how Georgia bringing in more guys than ever before. And I think it's going to be very important for continuity, development of some of those pieces that might play early, that they're coming into the fold early. Now, the other natural kind of reactive question to what we're talking about here is, okay, Jeff, so who's not here yet? Who's not arrived yet? So there's 4 names. We have a graphic here that we've built for that. There's 4 names. Dylan Fairchild, he's going to try and win another state championship as a heavyweight wrestler in Georgia. Dylan Fairchild's not in. Jamon Dumas Johnson is not in. Kamari Lassiter, another incredible-looking, impressive defensive back in the University of Georgia. He won't enroll early, and also Jared Wilson, another very key piece in what Matt Luke's trying to do is he kind of revolutionizes and retrofits Georgia's offensive line for what he's looking for. Georgia's overall class, it goes 19 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense, 10 guys in state, 10 guys out of state. So that's a very quick look at all that. And I think naturally what it leads me to that's left here is just trying to keep up with a lot of things. I think I've been, one of the things we've went through a lot of those guys right now. We've talked about the early enrollees. I think right now we have that video available that University of Georgia just put out maybe 35, 45 minutes ago. Here's a look at all those guys that have enrolled early at the University of Georgia. They're moving into the ECV, the East Campus Village. Let's take a look at what moving day looked like for the class of 2021 here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. So you see everybody, there's mom and dad, everybody's got masks. Everybody's doing this the right way. You see boxes of hangers. You'll see guys bringing in some of their TVs, their game systems, their clothes, their sheets. You see the dorms, everybody moving in. I think you see Todd Hartley there. You see Kirby Smart there. Not always get the head football coach there on move-in day in these productions that are put together by Georgia on the first day of class or the moving day. But you see all those guys in there. You see a couple of the receivers. Didn't see big Amarius Mims in there. It'd be pretty hard to not catch him. You don't see Micah. Didn't see Micah either. I didn't see Lavassier Carroll. I don't think I saw those guys, but you see a lot of the class moving in to the dorms. It's a sense of renewal. All these players coming in from the nation's number 3 recruiting class in the country. And for me, that's always a good kind of segue for a lot of these guys going from recruit, going to signee, and now they're on campus Bulldogs, ready to work, ready to build, and ready to get toward the class of 2021, making a name for itself between the Hedges and Athens. So that's a good wrap up there. Really good video. I'm glad Georgia was able to put that out right before our show. The second thing I want to talk about, we've discussed the early enrollees, and we're going to kind of try to flow with this lower third. We're going to start to double box a lot of the things we're trying to do with our graphics and everything else for Before the Hedges in 2021. Everybody's got to get better, right? Everybody's got to get a little bit better. Everybody's got to work on doing something better. So we're going to try to keep you guys involved and be a little interactive with what we have here. We've had a discussion on the early enrollees. You guys got a question? Hit me up in YouTube, hit me up in Facebook, and I'll make sure I try and get to that accordingly. The second thing we got to talk about is Terryon Arnold. Terryon Arnold dropped his top 3 over the weekend. And for me, it was really no surprise because when you talk to him, as much as I've talked to Terryon, it almost seemed like those were always the 3 schools. Excuse me, it was Alabama. And gosh, what in the world can Alabama have done to increase the prestige and luster of their program over the last couple of months? You have Florida and you have Georgia. We had another good interview rep with Terryon Arnold, where I shared his thoughts on playing at home, the pull to stay close to home, We had a good overview of maybe how he compares Georgia and Alabama being recruited by both those schools. And we also had a kind of a really quick rip through, as I call it. What has changed? What are all the cases right now for each of those three schools? I tried to break them down as best I could. Alabama has signed 5 defensive backs. Not got a lot of room left in that class. I think they have 25 or 26 signees already. They also have Kamar Wheaton, the 5-star running back that just committed. They're going to have to fit. They've also got a 5-star defensive end out of the state of Washington that they're going to try to sign as well. I think they're fighting with Ohio State, a couple other schools for that guy. And then there's also Terryon Arnold they're trying to get. So scholarships are going to be scarce in Tuscaloosa. Arnold has said that they are holding one for him, which shows the type of player he is. Florida sees him as a safety. Georgia and Alabama see Terryon Arnold, or as T, as a lot of people call him. They see him as both of those schools see him as a corner. Georgia only signed 4 DBs. Georgia lost, is in the process of losing Tyreek Stevenson. They've lost DJ Daniel. They've lost Eric Stokes. They've lost Richard LeCount. They've lost Mark Webb Jr. They've also lost a lot of really important pieces, a lot of good starters. I think 6 out of the top 7 defensive backs will have moved on from the University of Georgia. That's impressive to see what Georgia has to offer now with all those, all that playing time that was wide open. And, those that are following this story closely, like I am, will also know that Georgia lost Dijon Nugget Warren, probably the most plug and play ready 21-year-old cornerback they had in the class. So that certainly adds to the dialogue there with Terryon Arnold. He wants to play basketball in college. I don't think that's a major factor, but that is a factor. And Terryon Arnold was scheduled actually this weekend to play in the Georgia-Florida All-Star game, a resurrection of a really great thing for Georgia high school football over the last couple of decades, how they were bringing that game back. I learned earlier this week that Terryon Arnold will not be playing in that game. It was always kind of interesting for me that he had planned to do so. I think some of the official rosters for that game have him playing in that game, but he is not going to be playing in the Georgia-Florida All-Star game down in the Miami area. I think it's on the campus of Trask. It's at Trask Powell Stadium, historic stadium down there in South Florida. I think that's where Teddy Bridgewater played. A lot of big-time players grew up playing in that area. He is not going to play in that game. The next time Terryon Arnold will play football will step on a football field and compete will be at the next college, and that would be either Florida, Georgia, or Alabama. Florida had some inverse momentum to their recruiting, to their season, to say the least. They've also did not retain their safeties coach, Ron English, or their cornerbacks coach, Torian Gray. They did bring in Wesley McGriff, the former defensive backs coach at Auburn, to be one of the 2 staff members to fill their secondary, to coach their secondary under Dan Mullen. So Florida also signed 5 defensive backs as well. Alabama, I think, has already signed 3 guys that I think would play corner. The case is there. It actually looks like now that Georgia has signed fewer guys at Terryon Arnold's position. He did establish his top 3. He's going to make his top 3 known on December the 3rd. So that's a lot to take a look at right there. I hope you guys got a question or 2. Let me see if I can go to both Facebook and YouTube early on in our show so I can see what everybody has to offer. Everybody doing okay tonight? Everybody feeling good? Anybody went and got their groceries from Kroger tonight? You guys went to the grocery store from Kroger tonight. Let me know, and be funny to see how everybody did and how everybody made out. So Jose Cuevo, Elite GB, how are you today, man? Let's see. Got some thoughts there about Latrevius Brini. Everybody's watching the Auburn game right now. Foghorn Leghorn. I would disagree. I don't think Georgia's done with its 2021 recruitment. Some couple thoughts here from Taiwan Taylor. Jamari Sawyer can play himself into the first round. I'd look for Jamari to move in and play left guard. I think that's his future. I think the ability he flashed at left tackle this year would only enhance his draft stock, give him some versatility to play, some really strong versatility to play in terms of all over the piece. Taiwan Taylor, hey, man, thanks for reading the latest piece on Terryon Arnold. I hope you guys are aware of that. I think that helps Georgia. The one point I didn't mention earlier in our thoughts on Terryon Arnold is Georgia didn't really – I think Georgia getting Xavier Sorey Jr. really helped a lot. And Terryon even said that. He's like, he's not going to lie. That is certainly a big reason to consider Georgia. And it helped Georgia's chances, to say the least. Jay Shipes, Zamir White announced earlier today. He announced earlier today. There's some Foster Moss brings up the point about the running back room. Well, they definitely do need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They now have 6 running backs in the program. I'd look for Lavassier Carroll. Remember, Lavassier. I want you to channel Buster Rhymes, everybody, and think about that song that has the lyric, the title track, Cavassier in there. I mean, Lavassier as in Cavassier. That's how we laughed about it. I've been told several times that that's the way, that's the mnemonic, that's the memory trick in order to know how to pronounce that name. Facebook, I just gave you guys a quick lap around everything. Let me get to the Dog Nation page as well. I wanted to take a quick spin around some videos in order to catch up with everything. All right, Richard Sheffield. Thanks, man. Richard Sheffield gives a shout out to grateful to those at the Kroger Pharmacy. Richard, I know some very dear friends of mine that are in like day 12, day 13. They've still got the fever. They've tested positive. Some other guys, really strong men, very athletic men. They play a lot of tennis. They do a lot of CrossFit. They're like saying this is some of the worst things they've ever been through with all this. I know a guy, another good friend of mine, golfer, golfs all the time, works outdoors a lot. He said it was like day 9 for him. And then that's when the double pneumonia came. So Dan Kiley wants an article about Derek Stingley. Got some basketball chatter in here as well. Adam Mathis. You know what? Mathis, normally I don't dabble in this, but what about Ricks from LSU? Does Georgia have a shot? Adam, the first thing I'd say there is you need to see that young man in the portal first. I think that's when these sort of things can happen. And then after that, they would happen pretty fast. I do know this. I can reference last cycle, last year, a guy, Kendall Milton, grew up playing with Elias Ricks. That was a guy that he was working on to come to Georgia originally. Same thing with Keely Ringo. Those guys all knew each other from playing out on the West Coast. I would say this: if Ricks decides to enter the portal, which is a big step to say the least, I think Georgia would have a shot there. I think Georgia would have a shot. Joel Moody's bringing up Christian Tutt. Christian's really been a great punt returner for Auburn. That was one of his best skill sets coming in early. James Gatlin. Oh man, my bad for you, sir. James Gatlin says there's no Kroger in Lake Butler, Florida, but Peter Joffrey Wilson. Joffrey. I wanted to give some English on that name, put some respect on that name. But Peter Joffrey Wilson says that there are Krogers in California now. Very interesting there. Wes Underwood says North Augusta has a Kroger. Wes, I used to live in Evans. I went to cover CJ Bird a lot when he was playing at North Augusta. I remember when I worked in Augusta, I worked for the Augusta Chronicle there many moons ago. Enjoyed my time there in Columbia County and in Richmond County. It's good people down there. Anybody else from Evans or Augusta or Columbia County on the feed? If you are watching us on YouTube, represent. Give us just say Columbia County, Richmond County, Augusta, Aiken, anything in that area. If anybody's watching from those areas, feel free to say hello, because I always I think I worked for the Augusta Chronicle as the high schools reporter from 2004 to 2008, I believe. That was one of the many stops in my reporting career, which kind of led me to where I am today and on Dog Nation before the Hedges for the last 4 years. But guys, as we said, you got some good Kroger talk going here in the comment section. That seems like the perfect time for us to bring in and import our always valued, our always subtle, velvety radio, just syrupy voice of Brandon Adams and Kroger. I think that's a fine partnership as well. take a listen, take a minute or two, take about 30 seconds actually, and check out this message, this special message, which appears every week on Before the Hedges from Dog Nation.
We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but first, a quick word from Kroger. Kroger has made shopping for the groceries and household essential items that you need even easier by offering free pickup. Just shop online, choose a pickup time convenient for you, and Kroger will carefully pick out your order and bring it to your vehicle when you arrive. So the next time you're ready to shop at Kroger, take advantage of the free pickup. It's just another way that Kroger is fresh for everyone.
All right, guys, I believe we're back. I hope everybody enjoyed that message. Hey, I like that. I just gave a bunch of you guys. I just gave a bunch of you guys some likes on the Jeff Hillman. Hey, man. Brian Taylor, lots of AUG dogs on here. I don't know if you guys know this, but usually in normal times, I always go down to I end up going down for the Augusta Bulldog Clubs, usually their kickoff banquet. It's right off Washington Road, right across from Augusta National. Jeffrey Brown, how are you? Robbie Lester, so cool. Got a little Richmond County. Brian Taylor, got a lot of Richmond County and Columbia County, everybody in that area. Good hanging out with everybody. So we also got in the Facebook chat, we got a reference to Sanders Cummings. Now that's a guy, really good dude, man. I've met him a bunch. I wrote about him. I covered him when he was in high school. I spoke to him recently. I think I caught up with him at the I want to say that was at a 707 event at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He had a chance to chat with him. He also had a chance to try to play some baseball as well. There's some very good people in Augusta, Richmond County, that type of area. Walter MacArthur, God bless you, sir. Hope everything is well. Kevin Brown checking in from Fort Worth, Texas. All right, so let me get back on point now. If our graphics our graphics are coming together, this is the part of our show where we talk about Gunnar Stockton. Now, I think we have the tweet from Gunnar Stockton where he made the decision. To me, it was kind of inevitable when you saw the traction that was coming out of that program. No Will Muschamp, no Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo moves to Auburn. Gets very interesting now with the decommitment from Gunnar Stockton. I'm going to say two things, and I'm going to say them with the utmost sincerity. Number one, I think this will still be a hard decision for Gunnar Stockton. Georgia was in his top two with South Carolina. Now Auburn is in the mix. You've already seen some crystal balls from guys that cover Auburn very well that they eventually predict with a weak strength, I would say. I think the strength level was around a 4 or 5 for Gunnar Stockton to eventually sign with Auburn and commit to Auburn. I would look for Gunnar Stockton to get this thing done prior to his senior year because he doesn't want that to be a distraction. Gunnar, should he have another Gunnar Stockton type year, I think he accounted for something like 70 touchdowns this year. Should he have another type year, he would basically own a lot of the biggest marks in the Georgia high school football record book. I think he's maybe only about, I think I did this math. I think he's only about 600, 700 yards behind Brock Vandegrift for what he's done so far in his first 3 years of high school football. If Gunnar Stockton puts together another, 3,000, 4,000 yard season throwing the ball, I think he would pass Trevor Lawrence as the all-time leading high school passer in the state of Georgia, much less touchdown passes, that sort of thing. So Gunnar Stockton is gunning for a lot of big records. I'll say this, and this is one thing that I want to make sure that if I see it online, I know everybody has their own opinions, and normally logic would lead me to say that everyone's opinion on Gunnar Stockton is probably not the opinion that I have. And what I mean by that is most feel that Gunner would just take a look at Brock, Carson Beck, and JT Daniels and say, you know what, Georgia, adios. A lot of good connections there. There's Charlie Warner. He was a good acquaintance with Jake Fromm as well when he was the quarterback at Georgia. I just don't think if Gunner Stockton wanted to play for Georgia and his family, they sat down, they chopped it up, and they said, you know what, Georgia just makes the most sense. I don't think I don't think Gunner Stockton would shy away from who's there. I really don't. They understand that family's from a culture of competitors. His older sister, Georgia, is a scholarship basketball sophomore at Presbyterian College. His dad is in the Hall of Fame as a safety at Georgia Southern. His mother was a fantastic college basketball player, high school basketball player as well. I don't think they're going to worry about somebody being good in his way. If Georgia's the move for him, if Georgia's the one that feels right, they're going to chop it up. They're going to sit down. They're going to pray about it. They're going to think about all those relationships. And if Georgia's the move, I don't think he's going to worry about who's there. I think that's one thing I don't know if people really if I don't, the popular opinion and the logical opinion there, I don't know if I don't think I feel that way. I think that's the best thing I can say there. He's not going to shy away from a competition and by putting his weight belt on and rolling up his sleeves and going to work if he thinks the best place for him in his future would be at the University of Georgia. But the thing there with Auburn is I think, man, side road here. First of all, how much rougher can the first 3 weeks or so be for Shane Beamer? I think there's news today about Tracy Rocker. There's, you already lose Will Friend and you lose Mike Bobo. They go to Auburn. Just not a very good start. Now the decommitment from Gunner Stockton, even though he still has Connor Shaw on staff. The other thing that I think sparks all this interest to Auburn is the Bobo family, and that's Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator, but his father, George Bobo, he's trained a lot of quarterbacks across the state. They come up to Rabun County. They're just really dear friends with the Stocktons. George Bobo was the guy. If you guys read that story I wrote about Gunner, I think it was about a year ago, where Gunner has a CB radio. Gunner raises livestock. The guy that really first taught him to really spin a football the right way was George Bobo. So there's a long connection there, a strong, vital family connection there with the Bobos, and I think that's going to help Auburn in the long run. And I'll tell you this, if the succession plan certainly makes sense for Auburn, they'd have one more year of Bo Nix. Maybe you'd have to sit 1 year under Bo Nix, but then there would be a clear succession plan. Certainly would give some juice to the rivalry there. Auburn, Alabama would give Auburn another great quarterback to build around, because I think that program needs it with what they're trying to do with bringing in an outsider from the SEC ranks. But look what the new Auburn coach has done so well. He's brought in Derek Mason. He's brought in Will Friend. He's brought in Mike Bobo. Great recruiters that know all the high schools in the Southeast. You got Tennessee. You got South Carolina now. You've got the state of Georgia, of course, Alabama, Tennessee, areas like that. So certainly, new Auburn coach, new Auburn staff there has found a guy that realizes what he needs to do to compete, especially in the state of Alabama when you're talking about a guy going head-to-head with Nick Saban and guys like that on the recruiting trail every day. Very, very hard to do. And with Gunner Stockton, I'm not trying to sound like Forrest Gump as I say this, because I'm talking about Alabama and a university in Alabama in Auburn. But I think that's about all I wanted to put across tonight on our show tonight about Gunner Stockton. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. One other thing I think is you'll see with a pretty good segue here to our top targets. Gunner Stockton's name will still show up as one of our top targets for 2022. Because I feel the way I process everything, the way I listen to everything, the way that everything that comes into my information funnels from a lot of different sources, I still think if Georgia could sign any quarterback in the 2022 class, that would be Gunner Stockton. I don't think they worry about stacking up a lot of the prospects, because I think this year, the 2020 season is Exhibit A, that you can never have too many talented quarterbacks. When you had to go down the depth chart, when you see JT Daniels wasn't ready, you see Jamie Newman who opted out of the season. You had to bring in Stetson Bennett. I mean, there was a point, and you saw, what happened with Dwan Mathis as well. I think a program that competes for championships, top 5 every year, like the University of Georgia, they have no excuses for not having at least 2 or 3 capable quarterbacks that can go out there and give them a fighter's chance or a puncher's chance to win every football game they play. Certainly Stetson Bennett the fourth did that, knocking off Auburn, knocking off Tennessee, playing pretty well against Alabama, all things considered. I just think Georgia, and it's in the championship business. Look what happened this year with Trevor Lawrence. Look what happened this year with the injury to Justin Fields. Football is a physical and violent game, and you've got to have capable quarterbacks underneath your starter, your incumbent, in order to make that engine go. Let's jump into the top targets. I know each week we kind of go from number 12 down to number 1. I want to speed through those guys as well. Number 12, you have the strong side defensive end, Shamar Stewart. He's a 5-star out of Florida. Monsignor Pace out of Opelika, Florida. Number 11 is a guy that I really enjoy the chance getting to talk to already, getting to cover already. Big Bear Alexander. His high school is playing for the state championships in Texas on Friday. Folks, hard to believe, but in Texas, where football is everything and everything is bigger, they're still playing their high school state championships. And a lot of their 5A, 6A, and 7A schools will decide their championships this weekend. That's number 11, Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander is going to take a while. When I talked to him about his recruiting, I think he told me he wants to take as long as possible with his decision. He's out there in Texas, but Georgia has already established a strong baseline of recruiting with him. Number 10, Jeremiah Alexander. I think he would be an inside linebacker at Georgia or Alabama. He's a former commitment to Alabama. He's a back-to-back state champion. The young man can power clean 390 pounds. I've got him at number 10. I think Georgia has a strong shot there with Jeremiah Alexander, but I certainly, if not for the respect that he used to be an Alabama commitment, he's in the state of Alabama, roughly about 30 miles outside of Tuscaloosa. Really the only reason he decommitted from Alabama in the first place is he felt it was taking away from his high school experience and trying to chase championships there for Thompson High School. That's why he's number 10. Number 9 is Travis Shaw. Georgia got into a good spot when they could before the pandemic wall came down with the number 2 defensive tackle in the country out of Grimsley High School in Greensboro, North Carolina. Number 8, I'm going to say this very fast. Brennan Thompson has a verified 10.18 time in the 100 meters. That's faster than Arian. That's faster than Keely Ringo. That's faster than Tyson Campbell. It's faster than just about everybody, except maybe Emory Floyd, another guy in the 2022 class that Georgia has their eyes set on as a safety and as a special teams performer. Brennan's number 8. Number 7, the aforementioned Gunnar Stockton out of Raven County in Tiger, Georgia. Impressive player, big-time velocity on his arm. He's only about 6'1", runs the ball a lot. I don't know if he'd be able to – if his legs would be called on as much in college. Gunnar Stockton, certainly a name. Again, these top targets list, these are not the best players pound for pound. I think it's the best fits that kind of hit the spokes of need, ability, the chances Georgia has. I probably, considering the decommitment, it would have been easy for me to move up Gunnar maybe 1 or 2 spots, but I still feel really strongly about Georgia's needs and the chances for Georgia to try and bring in some of these guys that go up higher than them. Number 6 is Daniel Martin out of Marietta High School. Daniel, he's an All-American. He's been an All-American. He was on a state championship team as a sophomore. One of those guys that I think would be an ideal outside linebacker against spread hurry-up teams. You could move him down and I can play like all over the scheme. He could be a little bit of a safety. He could be a little bit of a star. Very versatile defensive player. Number 5 is a 3-star. Folks, this guy is a 5-star waiting to happen as soon as the evaluation happens. Branson Robinson out of Germantown High School in Madison, Mississippi. Branson, I think he ran for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns in about 12 games. 8 games as a junior. I'm going to say it. You certainly get Nick Chubb vibes when you watch Branson Robinson carry the football out of Germantown High School in Madison, Mississippi. Number 4 is a guy I got a chance to write about this weekend. Hope everybody saw the Jalen Walker story. Jalen Walker never spoke to a young man quite like this. I know I've covered guys that wanted to be a podiatrist, an archaeologist, a guy that wanted to study insects, guys that wanted to be weathermen, football players that wanted to do a whole lot of things. But Jalen Walker is my first orthodontist. He's an All-American. His dad is a college head coach at Catawba College in Salisbury, North Carolina. He's the nation's number 4 outside backer. I think he's probably going to be an inside backer for the majority of time in high school. Georgia's in his top 6. Jalen Walker, folks, knew he wanted to be an orthodontist before he knew he wanted to play in the NFL. Jalen Walker is already, for a couple of years, I've been told, kind of job shadowing orthodontists already. He's got a 4.0. He just checks every stinking box on the grid, and he kind of creates new boxes, and he checks those off as well. Jalen Walker, number 4. I'd look for him to make his decision sometime in the next 2 or 3 months. Clemson, North Carolina, Auburn, Ohio State, and Alabama. Those are the schools there, I think, for Jalen Walker. Let me see. North Carolina, Georgia, Clemson, Auburn, Ohio State, Alabama. Yeah, those are the schools in his top 6. Certainly got the right schools in his top 6. He was recently reoffered by Auburn by the new staff, so you would think the relationships on that staff are a little bit behind a couple of others. Jalen Walker visited Clemson and North Carolina prior to the pandemic, and then Jalen Walker saw North Carolina play as a fan at a regular season game this year. And then he saw Clemson face Notre Dame in Charlotte in the ACC championship game. And this might be a little bit something to think about as you guys wonder, how can Georgia wrestle away a player like Jalen Walker away from the likes of Clemson and North Carolina in his home state? Well, Jalen Walker was scheduled to be a fan in the stands, buy a ticket for the Vanderbilt game. When the Vanderbilt game was canceled, Jalen Walker still made his way with his family to come check out Georgia. They went around the town. They took pictures in the bookstore. You see the story on dognation.com. Instead of guys taking pictures in the jersey with all the gear in the locker room, Jalen Walker was taking a picture next to the mannequin inside the UGA bookstore. And that mannequin was dressed out in Georgia colors. And that was his picture on his no contact self-guided visit across Clark County in Athens, Georgia. Just to want to see what a weekend looked like, even a non-game weekend. Number 3, Emanuel Henderson. What can you say about this kid? It's a 5-star running back. I'm going to write about him on dognation.com tomorrow. Georgia made his top 10. He's the nation's number one running back in the country. If you wanted to look at these running backs in the top targets list, Emanuel Henderson is more like Sony Michel. Branson Robinson is more like Nick Chubb. Emanuel Henderson has been to Georgia before. Certainly Georgia, I think, the school that has a good shot with him. Auburn, Alabama loom. So does Clemson. A lot of schools he needs to check out once the pandemic curtain raises. Number 2, Mikhail Williams, Hardaway, Columbus, Georgia. Georgia's in his top 10. I think he's going to establish a top 3 sometime in May. He's going to commit on a certain day in August. Mikhail Williams had 17 sacks as a junior for Hardaway High School in Columbus. He dominated the Georgia Elite Classic. I think he had 3 or 4 sacks in that game. Also played some offensive tackle. This is another guy that I think is a 5-star, almost out of the chrysalis there. I think that's the first time we use the word chrysalis on our Before the Hedges show. So I always like to drop some cool lexicons, some cool syntax in our show. Keeping up the pace. I'm speed through this a lot. There's a lot of names to remember. Malachi Starks, Jefferson High School, played quarterback for that team. I think he's a safety. He's rated as a 5-star athlete. I'm going to say this. Quickest way I can say this in the little info blurb I can give you about Malachi Starks is I think he's easily one of the 6 or 7 most impressive guys on and off the field that this Kirby Smart staff at Georgia has ever recruited. That's why he's number 1 on this list. He is a winner. He gets it. Very special young man on and off the field. Driven by things that I think would make him a guy very likely to succeed and surround himself with positive people in his college career. I'm going to go through quickly. Very quickly. We've got another slide here, the 18 other big names to know. Kaytron Fat Man Allen out of IMG Academy. One quick thing about him is he's played with Lavoisier Carroll as kind of a 1A, 1B running back with Lavoisier at IMG Academy. Kojo Antwi out of Lambert High School in Sewanee. Kojo recently told me that his kind of leaders right now, quasi-leaders right now, are Ohio State and Georgia. Very interesting that Georgia's in the pecking order right there for a receiver that already fancies himself some Ohio State as well, even if he's an in-state prospect. Another running back there is Javonte Barnes. He was a former teammate of Darnell Washington. You got Tyler Booker there. I think Georgia, Florida, some other schools right there. He's actually from Connecticut. He's a Connecticut native. Braden Davis, Oscar Delp. I think Oscar Delp, for me, he told me that Georgia's told him for over 6 or 7 months now that he's the number one target at tight end in the class. Delp's a really good player. Just got a recent offer from Clemson. If Georgia wasn't so flush right now with tight ends in terms of what they've done recently in terms of Darnell Washington, and then I got Brock Bowers, another All-American, top 3 tight end in the 2021 cycle. Delp would probably be the name that I would probably move if there were 13 names on this list. That would be Delp. If there were 14, I'd probably put Emory Floyd there. Emory Floyd's told me recently that he's going to make his decision on May the 7th. I'd be watching for that. He wants to go under 21 seconds in the 200. Whew. Folks, that's just really fast. Really, really fast. Jordan James is another running back out of Oakland, Tennessee. Going down the list here, I want to pull out a couple of names. Sam Mbake. Sam Mbake. He's a guy out of Brookwood. He did some good play over the weekend at a national 7-on-7 pylon competition. Kristen Miller, name you're going to hear a little bit later in our online chatter. Quayshawn Sapp out of Lee County and Leesburg. That's another name. And I'm going to say this for the second straight week just because I think it's so stinking cool. Tevin White out of North Stafford High School in Stafford, Virginia. One of the top 6-7 running backs in the country. Really fits what Georgia's in his top 6. Really fits what Georgia's trying to do in terms of a 3-down running back. Kind of got a lot of – he's a big kid now. He's about 6'2", but kind of got a little of that Donovan Edwards type flavor to his game. Ito Smith, for those Todd Monken fans out there. But I want to bring up Tevin White simply because he was actually named after Tevin Campbell, the great early 1990s hip-hop artist. Funny things when you pick up when you recover these guys. Tyson Campbell, I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you guys. Tyson Campbell was not named after Mike Tyson. He was named after the model Tyson Beckford that I think appeared in all those Fast and Furious movies or whatever. Named after that guy. His family thought he would have they hoped for him to have some model type looks right there. That's a quick look through the 2022 class. Now, like I said, I promised you, we hadn't been on our P's and Q's. We haven't been ripping out a lot of the online chatter of late, but we've got that for you guys tonight. There were a couple of things I wanted you guys to see that caught my attention. I think the first thing I want to roll through is the Gunnar Stockton decommitment tweet, which came with the traditional no interviews, please. I think you see as you read that on the screens right now that wasn't an easy decommitment. And there's a sincerity to Gunnar as well that he hoped that came across with that tweet. Another tweet here I want to bring to mind from the Atlanta Touchdown Club. The Atlanta Touchdown Club has an honor called Mr. Georgia Football, where they give it to you got to be first a pretty stinking good player and have a great season, but it's also a player whose ability, values, prestige, kind of scope represents the best of Georgia high school football. That honoree this year was Brock Vandegrift. Brock threw for over 4,000 yards. Ran for, I think, a little over 500. I think he's one of 4 players in the state of Georgia that has ever had the ability to do that. Quite an exclusive list, considering there's only about maybe 8 or 9 guys that ever threw for 4,000 yards. Trevor Lawrence never threw for 4,000 yards when he was a high school legend in the state of Georgia at Cartersville. Former winners of that Mr. Georgia Award. Let me show you how select this company is. Pretty big trophy, too. It's a huge football. It's probably about that big. Normally, they give it away in non-COVID times at a swanky banquet in Metro Atlanta, right around Truist Park. Let me make sure I call that the right thing as it is right now. But previous winners, first one was Jake Fromm. Second one was Justin Fields. The third one was Dylan Fromm, and then the fourth one was Georgia Tech running back Jahmyr Gibbs, and now the fifth one is Brock Vandegrift, certainly a very deserving guy there. Recent tweet, I think this came up today from Kristen Miller. I mentioned him as one of the top targets in the defensive line and the others considered. 18 other big names to know. Kristen Miller, he has a tweet that says he's tagged Mikhail Williams and he's tagged Quayshawn Sapp. Where are we going? Guys, those are three of the bigger targets for Georgia in the 2022 class. They make it seem like they all three of them want to play together. Those three guys are also, I'm talking really tight with Tift County commitment right now. Tyree West out of Tifton. Those guys, I've always made it clear to me that they want to play together. A couple tweets from Coach Schumann that kind of show you move-in day a little bit. The first one is Xavier Sorey Jr. That's the inside linebacker, another guy that I think when we were going over our early enrollees and how vital they are for this program, it's good that those guys are both in early. Smile Munden Jr., that's the other tweet right here. He's kind of coming back from a knee surgery. I was told after the procedure, and then even when Smile Munden committed to Georgia in early December, that he probably was going to be about 90% when he first got to Georgia. It'd be interesting to see how quickly he rehabs and is ready to go at full speed under Ron Corson's care. Neat little tweet from David Daniel. David Daniel noted the day he was packing up and getting ready to move to Georgia was 2 years to the day when he got his offer from Georgia. Georgia was his 13th offer. It was certainly a very lucky offer for David Daniel and also Georgia. Another tweet from we had a tweet earlier in our online chatter about Brock Vandegrift. This one's actually from Brock Vandegrift's account. Pretty cool here. You see a message there from Brock about what it feels like for him to be going into enrolling at Georgia. As it kind of pulls up on the screen, I'm going to read along with it. Just shows you a lot about his faith, kind of how he's wired. He says, Lord, I thank you for another day. As I start college tomorrow, I just wanted to say thank you one more time for everything. And then the hands raised prayer emoji. Brock just spent a good week in Florida Panhandle, right around Pensacola Bay. They were doing some fishing right there. I think they had a pretty good haul, but that was certainly a trip that him and his family had looked forward to before he made that transition to college football player. Probably won't be as many tears for mama and dad with Brock, seeing as how he's going to be 10, 15 minutes away. Maybe much easier for him to stay close to his family. Couple of other tweets I want to get through. One of them is a decommitment, Treyan Webb. Georgia spoke to him. He basically thought he committed too early. I think it was mostly forced by schools like Oklahoma and Ohio State coming in hard on him, recruiting him heavily. Treyan Webb was offered by Todd Hartley when he was in the 7th grade. He was a 7th grader. He got to see him compete when we came to look at Marcus Crowley, who eventually wound up at Ohio State. He actually was the back that played a lot after Master Teague in the national championship game for Ohio State. But he was there to see Crowley. He was committed to Miami at the time. And he noticed the 7th grader kind of ripping through the defense when they were kind of out of bodies to run the ball against the first team defense. Georgia's still in his top 6. He told me it's going to take a while before he makes his next decision. Quayshawn Sapp, and guy we mentioned a couple times earlier in the 18 other big names, and also that tweet from Christian Miller. I think he drops his top 10 this week. He has a revised top 10. Georgia's in the mix there. I think Georgia's going to be a very strong player for Quayshawn Sapp. He's from the state of Georgia, played in the state championship game for Lee County, played at center. I think he could be a center or guard, one of those interior guys that Georgia always needs to pick up. I don't have offensive line as a major priority for the 2022 class, simply because Georgia has scattered, smothered, chunked, capped, diced every possible elite All-American type lineman over the last couple of years. They've gotten some centers, they've gotten some guards, they've gotten some franchise prototype tackles as well. 2 more tweets as we're ripping through them. We mentioned this earlier, Terryon Arnold, there's his top 3. Basketball is a thing to him. You see him with the 2 basketball images there on the screen. Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. I think Georgia got the number 1 jersey. Florida got the number 1 jersey. They're in this middle right there. Alabama got the number 2 jersey. He's visited all 3 of those, and he plans to visit all 3 of them again before he makes up his mind. We mentioned a 2023 decommitment. Here's a 2023 commitment. The 6'4", 305-pound defensive tackle, Seven Cloud, from McEachern High School in Powder Springs. Big guy, big physical guy. Certainly a guy that can help Georgia, especially if he develops after 2 more years. He was ready to commit to Georgia, and he wanted to be tested and go up against the guys, the type of offensive lineman that the University of Georgia is going to attract. There you have it. That is a lot of information on the 2022 class. There is your online chatter. Let me see what everybody's going on. Hugh Nash. Yes, sir. I do, man. I remembered your name because Nash is a very big name in Georgia football history. Are you related to any Nashes that used to play for the University of Georgia? Let's see what else is going on here. Funny things going on in there. Funny thing, we got a Hugh Nash gives us a Zach Evans sighting in the chat. Ryan Elward says Mike Kroger in Cobb County is a 5-star establishment. You think we have risk in the attrition in the running back room with both Cook and Zeus coming back and lack of snaps available for all? I think the thing to consider there is I'd look for Lavassier to be kind of used maybe as a red shirt or maybe as a kick returner. I think Dejon Edwards showed he can kind of be a guy that can get things done. I think the thing you got to look at, and I'm going to just speak very honestly here, is Zamir might have been the healthiest back for Georgia over the last 2 years of the guys that are still in that room. You know, Kendall Milton had the setback this year. Kendall Milton also had a setback during his senior year. Buchanan High School in Fresno. Tough kid, physical kid. I think it's probably just some bad luck more than anything. But you've had 2 seasons there where he's missed some time. James Cook has missed some time. Kenny McIntosh has missed some time. I think it just goes to show that you always need to make sure you have 2 or 3 guys in the running back room. I would look for James Cook to give you a little bit more action in the passing game and on third downs. We got a final, guys. I know you guys are maybe paying some attention to the Georgia-Auburn basketball game. I think Georgia had some problems just playing good fundamental basketball, getting rebounds, boxing out, kind of working the glass, had trouble shooting, and they fell 95-77 tonight to Auburn and Bruce Pearl. John William Adams. Yeah, that's what I brought up. I brought up Treyan Webb as well. You know, the one thing, John, that I think is going to be very complicated there is I want to mention this as well is so there's kind of a yin and yang for everything. So Georgia gets a decommitment from Treyan Webb, but yet I think it was going to be very hard for Georgia to end up with the 3. There's 3 really just great googly moogly, impressive workhorse, stalwart 5-star backs in the 2023 cycle. There's Justice Haynes, there's Richard Young, and there's Treyan Webb. So, and it's funny how you see some of the services think that Treyan Webb might be an athlete. He's still rated as an athlete. He fancies himself. He says he enjoys playing corner. He enjoys playing defensive back. He finds it more fun. But folks, Treyan Webb is a high school sophomore, and he is already squatting 500 plus pounds, and he is probably now closing in on a 300-pound power clean. Those are things that lead you to be a ball carrier and to deliver a blow and punish guys on the offensive side of the ball. Don't meet too many DBs that can power clean 300 and squat 500 in their sophomore season. That's why I see him as a running back. Brian Marcoulier wants to know, with Georgia's secondary losing so much, do I think it's improved their chances with Arnold? I think it has. I think he told me that he was already thinking the playing time was going to be strong for him this year anyway, knowing guys that were moving on. And now you subtract Tyreek Stevenson and you subtract obviously you subtract Tyreek Stevenson, but also you subtract Dejon Nugget Warren that was supposed to be a big part of this class. Now he's at Jackson State. It certainly makes things even more kind of wide open. I had a note on talking about that on forum.dognation.com where we kind of jumped into like, hey, what's up with that? And I came up with a phrase, and this caused my bride and I have just now started watching the series Yellowstone on streaming. We've heard about it from so many people, but right now I think Georgia's defensive backfield looks about as expansive as the Dutton Ranch or Yellowstone in that show. I mean, it is just wide open how quickly a talented guy like Terryon Arnold, should he choose Georgia, would have a chance to play there. Ryan Elwood. I think Ryan Elwood's trying to figure me out. He knows if he somehow drops Kroger into a question, I'm more likely to bring that up. Ryan, it's very smart of you to do so, but I just really look for detailed questions. And you had definitely a detailed question. We got some guys. Joel Moody has a question. Who is the under radar non 5-star recruit that you think could come in and contribute as a freshman? Yours is Nyland Green. I would say it would be Terryon Arnold. Should he choose Georgia, I think that would be the guy that would come in and immediately be a guy that I think would play early. I think David Daniel could play a lot on special teams. For me, the answer, I keep coming back to this. It's either Brock Bowers, because I don't think Georgia has a guy like that in the program that's 6'3", 235, runs a 4.5, strong as an ox, got about a 35, 38 vertical. I don't think Georgia has a guy like that. Then the other guy I think that should probably play right away based on merit, not on need, would be Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, 6'5", about 305. I think he had a procedure. He had to make sure he got cleaned up early on, maybe before he reported to Georgia. But I think Dawkins is going to have a good future at Georgia. I really do, especially being, kind of trained by Trey Scott. I think the corners, Javon Bullard and Kamari Lassiter are also very vastly underrated. And the last two names for me, folks, Jared Wilson. That's all I got to say. Movement, intelligence, tenacity. I just like everything about Jared Wilson's game. And then another name that Jamon Dumas Johnson, the inside backer out of St. Francis Academy. True inside backer, although he was at one point rated as an outside backer. I think he plays quicker than Shamal London does. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to play more. I'm not going to say he's going to play better. I don't say he's going to have a better career. But I think he plays faster than London and maybe even Sori, because I think Sori might be the guy that might play outside. Can play outside as well, especially given the attrition now for Georgia at the position. No Aziz, no Jermaine Johnson, that sort of thing. It'll also be very interesting to see maybe what happens with a guy like everybody forgets about this name, Walter Grant. What's he going to be? Is he still a part of this program? Is he still on the roster in 2021? Another name, Robert Beal Jr. as well. That was a guy that had thought about portaling last year, pulled his name out of the hat and stayed in the program. Very interesting to see what happens there also with a guy. I mean, Robert Beal, people forget in the 2017 class, he was an Under Armour All-American. He was a top 5 defensive end. I think he was a number 4 defensive end in the country at one point. He lost his 5th star eventually, but Beal's a guy that, I mean, now he's 17, 18, 19. He's like 4 or 5 years outside of his high school senior year. Very developed young man. I think he has a chance. He's gotten some spot duty this year as well for Georgia as well. So appreciate all those questions. I want to give one last pass on our Before the Hedges show, brought to you everybody by Kroger. Try to get through a lot of questions. Somebody bet me the other day that they didn't think I could get through 30 questions in a show tonight and get everything else I want done. And one of the things I try to do is I try to get through a lot of questions every day, every one of these shows. Jordan Harris, is Georgia for sure getting a quarterback in the 2022 class? I think that's the intent. Georgia does need a quarterback in the 2022 class because you would be losing JT Daniel. What would be Stetson Bennett's future beyond the 2021 season? What's going to happen with Brock versus Carson? I think eventually one of those guys is going to figure out who's the man and who's not, and then move on. I don't know how long both of those guys will wait. I can't see both of them waiting more than a couple seasons to figure out where they are in Georgia's plans. That's why I think you always got to get a quarterback every year. Elite GB says he doesn't have any questions. All these shows we do, you're set. Dream XP, waking up early in the Middle East. Good show. Hey, Dream XP, what are you over there in the Middle East for? If you're serving our country and protecting our nation, we thank you for that as well. Crow King 123 brings up Arian Smith. Let me tell you this: I have a dream, and the dream is that Arian Smith becomes the marquee return man for Georgia, and he does better things than even Mikhail Hardman Jr. did. Makes more plays. I think Arian Smith could be to Georgia. Give him another year. Junior year, he could be to Georgia maybe about 85% of what Jalen Waddle was for Alabama. Let me see. Yeah, Crow King brings it up. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins was the best player. He was it was very unique to see a defensive lineman in Tyrion Ingram Dawkins who didn't have like 18 sacks and 40 tackles for losses. It was very interesting to see him named as Mr. South Carolina football. See, we also got some Yellowstone fans. Elite GB likes Yellowstone as well. Rhett Womack knows about the speed for Brendan Thompson at receiver. Let me see. There you go, guys. Hey, guys, it's been a show. One last thing. You liked anything on this show? Like it on your YouTube platform. Like it on your Dog Nation Facebook platform. Share it across your timelines if you don't mind. That's what keeps us thriving. Gives us a robust business, what we try to do here. Also, do me this one small favor, friends. If you have not subscribed to the Dog Nation YouTube channel, maybe consider doing that. I think it costs absolutely nothing. And then you get all these programs. When something happens on Dog Nation, we'll go live. We'll tell you what we think about it and everything else, and bring you that information you really need to know. That's Connor Riley. That's Brandon Adams. That's Mike Griffith. That's Mike Griffin, excuse me. Great team to be a part of here at Dog Nation. And one thing we do, we like to write. We like to cover the dickens out of this team. And we all really love what we do. And we love bringing this information to each and every one of you every day. So that's that. That's been Before the Hedges. I think some special guests will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Be very interesting as we kind of get deeper and deeper into the waters for the 2022 class, as well as what's left in the 2021 class. From all of us here at Dog Nation, a special thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Cover 4 tomorrow, of course. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Go visit your Kroger. Go stock up with some groceries. That's what we all do as humans and Americans. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Jeff Sintel. See everybody again on the pages of dognation.com. God bless you, everybody. Have a great night.